Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Spill the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with my buddy Ryan Groene, who's actually an Ohio guy who moved to Charleston. He actually went to Miami University, which is where I went. We didn't really know each other, didn't meet until I think after college up in Cleveland, kind of crossed paths, and then kind of got matched up down here in Charleston. So he's a mobile home guy, owns a bunch of mobile home parks, and has done a phenomenal job growing his portfolio that way. So today we're going to sit down, see how the mobile home park industry is being impacted by what's going on in the marketplace. So let's sit down with Ryan. Ryan, what's up, bud?
Not much.
How you doing, man?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Dude, well, first of all, I appreciate you being here, man. This is a Miami graduate from Miami University in Ohio, where we have shirts that say Miami was a college before Florida was a state. And
that's right. That's right. I was just there actually. So actually, yeah, nothing's changed.
No, it's a great school, but we didn't meet until we came down here. So. Yeah, man. So you're in the RV park, mobile home park space primarily.
Correct.
I want to dive into a lot of the elements of how you've built up your portfolio, how you built your business. I want to hear how you got started. I want to hear how you're navigating the current market, how you're finding deals, how you're raising money. Let's dive into all that kind of stuff. So give me your backstory first.
Yeah. So basically, my backstory began. Went to Miami, got a finance degree. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad actually in college,
yeah.
So kind of knew early on what I wanted to do, but then I, had to go get a job. I had bills to pay, student loans to pay, so I got a job in finance. Worked the corporate route for about 5 years. Found out that was definitely not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a place where I had to wear a suit and tie. I had to be on time, which I wasn't even on time today, so that's not my specialty.
Yeah.
So that didn't last very long. I kind of stumbled into mobile home parks. I looked at doing a flip of a mobile home.
What year is this?
2015.
Okay.
So back in 2015, I looked at doing a flip on a mobile home. Instead of flipping houses, I was living in Cincinnati at the time, actually living at home. So I was looking at how do I get out on a cheap way? I was actually looking to maybe move into a mobile home for a short period of time. I'm glad I didn't, but there's nothing wrong with that. So didn't end up doing a flip. Just kind of started looking at who owns these parks. My dad and I were kind of talking who owns these parks, and just kind of went down that rabbit hole, went to a boot camp, and then it actually took me, I started doing all my own mailers, did my own database, and I did it the long way, right? I did everything. So I pretty much know every mobile home park in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. I know the owner because I built my own database, cold called, sent out letters, and that was back before real estate kind of heated up, where I could send out 100 mailers and get probably 5 to 10 calls back, which is a pretty good ratio on that, right? So fast forward to 2017, I bought my first mobile home park with a couple guys down in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I had moved to Cleveland, Ohio at that time, and I think maybe we met then too. I'm not for certain.
I think we did.
I lived in Cleveland for a few years, had another job, and then I ended up buying my first park in 2018, and then simultaneously I was friends with a couple guys that had built a little bit of a portfolio in Ohio, and they kind of needed some help operationally. So they're like, hey, do you want to come work for us, kind of part-time, we'll pay you a little bit, kind of learn the ropes. Mm-hmm. So that's what sped up my kind of learning process of operating mobile home parks.
That always helps.
Finding, because it was kind of like a glorified
learning on
internship.
Somebody else's dime and time. That's a good way of doing it.
So I was the director of operations for 3 years at Buckeye Communities, which they own about 500-600 units in Ohio. Actually friends with them, and it was just kind of organic. It just kind of happened by luck. And then since then, I've bought, where we do raise money in JV and syndicate, bought 15 mobile home parks and 6 RV parks. We're about 1,500 units, give or take, and I've sold some stuff over the years as well. So that's kind of my backstory and speeding it up, for the last 4 years.
Now, do you own the mobile homes themselves and the RVs themselves, or do you only own the real estate?
So our business model is I don't want to be in the toilet changing business, and that's what attracted me to the mobile home park business. In the first instant was I'm just the landowner, and they park their mobile home there, right, and they rent the dirt from us, which is the model that I enjoy, and the reason why I like mobile home parks and RV parks is because we're just in the land business. I'm not in the toilet changing business.
Yeah, I've seen people have a lot of success in both of them, and it's interesting how the different perspectives come out and reasoning, but there's also understanding, what I heard from that is you understand what you like, you understand what resonates with you, what drives you, and what's a drainer for you, and I think that is more important than which way you're investing or which, what your exact business model, like understanding that and then creating a business model that fits that versus just going out and doing whatever, like you really understand what you want, what you don't want. And I think that's an important piece of developing your business and your strategy on what you're going to do, because dude, this is what you're doing all day, every day,
Yeah, exactly.
So talk about, how have you been finding deals over the past couple of years? Are you still buying deals? Are you back in acquisition mode with what's going on now? How has the market kind of changed and affected you guys?
So from when I got into it, I bought my first park in 2017. We were still sending mailers, cold calling, mainly doing direct to owner. We could still buy it. We could buy a value add park at 9, 10, 11 caps, like on actuals.
In 18.
In 18. Yep. And then it kind of it shifted.
Totally.
From 2018 to 2021, prices went from, 8, 9 caps to 3 caps and even 0 caps on like stabilized deals because debt was cheap. So we slowed down. I think we were sitting at your Mountain House last fall. I was there, and I was kind of like, we didn't really have anything. We bought what we bought, and then we had an RV park under contract. What were we doing? And I was even looking at buying businesses, just because I was, I like deals. I'm a deal junkie at heart. Most of us are, right?
Yep.
So, and then we kind of pivoted and we started buying RV parks, and then shift to the last year and a half. Mobile home parks we've looked at buying those still. We're still direct to owner. That's how we do a lot of our deals, is cold calling. My business partner is mainly the cold caller, and then I have more of the relationships within the mobile home park network, RV park network, and people bring us deals that way. We've paid, we buy wholesales, so you can wholesale mobile home parks just like you can apartments and single families. The margin's a little bit bigger, but it takes a little bit longer to close. So we're still buying. We've bought a couple deals from a couple brokers over the last year, which we never did for the first 3 years of my business. And
how are the conversations changing with the brokers and with the sellers right now?
So right now, it's sellers still want their prices.
From a year ago, prior to interest rates rising.
Correct, but they're realizing that they can't necessarily get that. So the conversation is, how can we close this deal, still get you your price potentially? So we've kind of turned into the seller financing model or a combination of that.
I feel like the mobile home industry, RV industry, is more open to seller financing than any other asset class.
They are.
I feel like they are really some of the most creative or open to creativity from the sell side, buy side, more so than any other asset class, because the financing wasn't always readily available for mobile home parks as it was for all these other asset classes that are more traditional, like apartments and hospitality and hotels and retail and office buildings, where you had to be creative. And a lot of these guys got in a creative seller financing position, and now they're selling in a similar position. So I feel like that's a very easy conversation to have with people.
It is, and a lot of these folks they were the original developers, right? It's unique. You see this massive single family house at this mobile home park, and then you see all these trailers around it, and it's like they just they had a bunch of land back in the day, and they developed it. They've owned it for 60 plus years.
And they lived in the house.
They lived in the house and managed it, and that was their income, right? It was a good living, or they lived close by. Or a lot of these guys that I've met, or women, over the last kind of couple years, they're very, very entrepreneurial. They don't just necessarily do the mobile home park business, and I think it's the same in apartments, but it's not as, they've had to be creative, so because the rent is significantly lower per unit, they had to do other stuff because maybe they weren't making as much.
I feel like it's more of a personal finance type of a play rather than it's been like a business type of a play for a lot of like that generation, right?
Correct.
You've turned it into a business, like apartments, or office space. You can go and buy those buildings and develop a business around it. I feel like it's been kind of like, hey, this is one of my investment strategies for my retirement, more so than it was an actual business that I'm going all in and trying to scale in the past, right?
Because, mom or pop probably had a construction business,
right,
and did this, did that, worked at the bank, or this was kind of
more of just like a revenue stream than
Correct.
it is an actual business
Correct.
for them.
Correct.
But guys like you are coming in and really starting to consolidate and create businesses out of it.
Correct, which has brought, cap rates down, returns down. So
Big time, man.
Here recently in the last 6 months, interest rates have shot up. So some banks that we used to do kind of some creative stuff with, they've broadened their DCR, which is their debt service coverage ratio. It used to be 1.2, 1.25. Now it's almost 1.3, 1.35, and then
Really?
in certain instances, yes. And they've also changed their so a lot of commercial debt is based on the 5-year U.S. Treasury rate, and it used to be 2 points above that. Now they've moved them to 3 points. Some of the local credit unions and institutions that we've worked with. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac life insurance companies, they're still lending, CMBS as well, but they're even a little bit tighter than what they used to be 6 months ago because they didn't know what was happening. But it seems as we push towards the end of the year, we're getting a little bit further down the road on, hey, here's where we are. We haven't had to retrade anything recently. We've just we've locked in rates a little bit longer, 60, 90 days ago. So, but I don't know what the next 6 months is going to have for the business. And I think a lot of seller financing and kind of some creative subject to stuff is going to happen here.
Big time.
Not in our business, but in every business. So.
Dude, I've seen the bridge lenders reduce their DCSR,
Okay.
DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, DSCR, in order to be like 1-to-1.
Okay.
Because otherwise they can't write loans. You know what I mean? And or it's a variable rate loan, and they just eliminate the debt service coverage ratio in order to make sure that all these loans don't go then into default, and then they look like idiots to their board. They're just eliminating some of that stuff. So it's gotten like and that kind of spooks me because now it gets really squirrely in the lending environment like it did 15 years ago of like, oh, well, we just want to write more loans, so we'll just loosen up on our lending parameters, and then all of a sudden they're doing a bunch of bad loans or loans that don't make sense. So that's what I've seen in more of the debt fund and investment funds, private equity type of side, because they have so much money that they're looking to just deploy.
They need to so deploy.
Dude, I've even seen venture capitalists in the tech industry start lending on real estate now because they don't have, like, tech valuations are completely shot, and they have so much money, dry powder, right, is what they call it, that is sitting on the sidelines that they just need some sort of yield on. So now they're coming in as equity investors or even debt lenders on the on real estate projects. Yeah, man.
I'd have to look into that.
No, it's very fascinating of how much money's out there still, which is a little bit different than what the market was, 15 years ago, because everything just kind of dried up and there wasn't all this sideline cash to be deployed into assets. And even though things are getting a little bit more squirrely with traditional financing, there's still a lot of private equity, private cash out there that needs to be deployed, that needs some sort of yield on it. So it's very quirky in order to try to navigate that.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think commercial real estate is. There's a lot of guys with a lot of cash still, and it's like they're still waiting. Yeah. Which, if the waiting continues, prices may never come down. Because it might just stay where it is.
Stagnant.
So,
correct. So what is? Have you tried selling anything in the past 12 months?
So yes, and I sold something last year, 2021 in August. That was my first park.
But that was still
good market, it was a little bit crazy.
Easy to move. Got their own financing. Didn't have to get creative with it, right?
Correct. So we have tried to sell 2 parks in the last year. One has like a zoning issue, so it wasn't really we knew that was going to maybe fall through. Yeah. And then the other one, we're actually under contract to sell right now. Hopefully it'll close before the end of the year. But that's a smaller park. It's an all cash offer, so it's it's under $500,000. So that under $500,000, a lot of times it's retail money. Yeah. Mom and they may somebody else may have some cash that they sold an asset. Yeah. So that's a little bit different.
There's a lot of buyers for that, a lot of access to capital for that.
Correct. So we haven't tried to sell anything larger. We're mainly in acquisition mode right now. We're trying to scale our RV park business and also still buying mobile home parks. So we've bought in 6 RV parks in the last year. Wow. And we're under contract to buy another 3 within the next 90 days. So we'll have probably close to 1,000 pads.
Are these seller financing?
A couple of them are. A couple of them are. One's actually a subject to. We're taking over their existing mortgage and an assumable note, essentially.
Do you actually go through that process of assuming the note? Or is it kind of like you leave it in place and then keep on making payments? And
a traditional subject to, and then they're carrying a seller second on the rest of the 50%. So we're giving them $100,000 down, $1.1 million purchase. We're taking over the payments. Actually, a pretty good mortgage. It's kind of a weird little mortgage. I don't even know how they got it. Yeah. And then they're carrying the back half for like 10, 15 years. So in a balloon payment. That's
great, man.
And then we're still doing, the traditional 20, 30% down with the local lenders where I sign recourse, which is our ultimate goal is to build the RV park business and either, flip it into long-term non-recourse debt or potentially sell it as like a big portfolio down the road.
Kind of roll it up and sell it to a REIT or something along those lines.
Correct.
I think it's a great way of doing it because you can do that. You can get like your sales price or at least very close to it and still even potentially maintain a part of the ownership of this thing too. You know,
Correct.
That's good, man. So as you're moving into this new market, as we're moving into, so you're doing a lot more creative financing, a lot more subject to type stuff. What about operationally? Are you doing anything different operationally? Are you seeing rents really jump up? Are you keeping them stagnant because you don't want to lose tenants? Or are you still pushing rents to kind of push with the market?
So with the mobile home park business, I raise rent every year. It's even if, because a lot of these markets are the average lot rent, not rental, they just rent the dirt. The average lot rent in America is about $325 to $350, which is it's crazy. How does that even exist? We've bought parks where the lot rent's under 100, and we may pay utilities.
So that's the average going in lot rent.
Correct. So we try to raise it to market. We are typically understandable that it's affordable housing, right? So we're not trying to go in and I'm raising it 50% day one, because it is affordable housing. So the most I've ever raised rent here recently was $50, and that was the market. We still have another 50 to 100 to go. So nobody left. Everybody still pays. That's in the mobile home park business. And then on the RV park business,
nobody's moving for $50 a month change.
Correct.
Even if rent's 300 and you bump it by 50, yeah, it's 15% ish. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, how much money does it cost to get a truck in here to move this friggin' mobile home or this RV?
7 to 10 grand to move a mobile home.
Yeah, dude, nobody's doing that.
Correct. So in the RV park business, it's a little bit more of a dynamic pricing. We can raise that a little bit more aggressive because the customer isn't as necessarily sticky, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't cost 7 to 10 grand. You can literally hook up your truck and pull off.
Yeah.
So we will raise that if we have nightly rentals, which is people pull in, pull out, like a little bit of weekender. That's dynamic pricing, right? So whatever the market dictates, we're at that because our software.
Yeah.
And then for the seasonals, where they might keep it for the season, or it's like a little bit long term, where they may even live there, we'll raise it a little bit more aggressively because they may have a little bit better paying jobs, so they can absorb that rent increase a little bit more. Typically, we're not raising it any more than 15 to 20% per season.
Yeah.
But that's really on acquisitions. On acquisition, we did a rent raise here recently that was pretty significant. But the old owner was supposed to do it, they didn't, and then we were left with having to do it because that's what we modeled for and planned for. And
does that create pretty negative sentiment?
It does, especially when the transition was not super smoothly, because that's always with the RV park business. It's a lot of branding, a lot of reputation versus the mobile home park. The mobile home park, they're there because they kind of have to be, right? It's affordable housing. There's nowhere else to live. It's the last stop.
Do you try to bring additional value or investment into the park? Do you try to let me go in there and do all the landscaping or put some fences up or try to pretty this place up so that way they see the investment before I go and jack up rents, because that maybe softens the conversation?
We do that on both ends, but that's not always necessarily the case. We try to add value before we raise rents, but it depends on where we are in the lease cycle, where we are in the year, how far their rent is, and just kind of the overall turn. I may raise rent because I want to blow out people, right? I don't want them to stay because the bad people can't afford, right? Yeah. So we always try to add value. I'm not trying to take advantage of people, both in the RV park business and the mobile home park business. We'll go in and maybe the pool needs fixed in the RV park. Maybe there's new roads that or we need to upgrade the infrastructure. We're always looking to do that. And it takes money, it takes time, it takes effort. And right now it's, the contractors are pretty much can charge whatever they want in certain instances in certain towns, and you either pay it or you wait. And sometimes you just pay it and then, do some other stuff here and there.
Have you seen that change at all? I'm seeing it change a little bit now.
Yeah,
I'm seeing
a little
the
bit.
Contractor saying, "Hey, we're looking for continuous work. Hey, my guys are ready. Hey, we can jump on the chop." Versus before, it was like, "Well, we're booked out 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Get in line. You got to pay a premium, dude." And now they're coming back, and that arrogance is kind of out of the air, and they're, tail between the legs. Hey, can you keep us busy?
Yeah, and a lot of guys also have retired too over the last 3-4 years with COVID. They're like, maybe they were 60 years old,
I don't
65,
need this shit anymore. Yeah.
And they're like, we're done. So we've seen a little bit of both ends where they're coming back asking for more work, and we may just not have it because, like I said, we're not in the business of changing toilets, so we're pretty much one and done with a lot of our infrastructure projects. Or we always have a maintenance guy on site typically that can fix little things here and there. So, but typically we're like one and done with the CapEx type stuff. Fixing the roads, fixing the sewer line, fixing the water line.
Yeah,
stuff
then you don't
like
have to touch it for 10 more years.
Correct.
How do you? So on your RV parks, these are like the schoolies and the converted, vans that people then have like beds in and little kitchens in, and or an actual RV that people are traveling around. Is there a network of that where people can look up, I don't know, hey, where are local RV parks that I can go and hook up my water, refill the water, empty the toilet, that's essentially what you guys have?
Yeah, correct. We're independent, meaning we're not like a franchise like a KOA or a Jellystone or Good Sam. If you have those type of
Is there an
campgrounds,
Airbnb network or something for that where you can look up parks on your journey?
There's different websites and different, other than Google, which honestly Google's the best, and then Facebook ads. We actually do a bunch of like Facebook ads for people because you can target people within that, and internet ads. So
how does location play into all that too?
It will recognize where you are. So a lot of times. But I'm getting ads.
But I mean, from the investment standpoint of you buying a park, saying, hey, are people actually driving down I-95?
Okay. So like location,
yeah.
We're always looking. I want to be in a destination area, lake, river, something where there's like water always attracts people, right?
Are you usually on the water or off the water? Or
so
what?
we are either we're on the water or close to the water. We have one in Lake Cumberland, Norris Lake, Douglas Lake. The one we're right on the water, on Douglas Lake, lakefront property.
Yeah.
And then other than that, we are typically right off the highway. So we have one in northern Kentucky that literally backs up to I-75. So it's an overnight stay, or it's like a workforce housing type of situation, for people traveling on 75. I'm always looking for population, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere, because if gas prices are $10, people aren't going to drive to these RV parks. Even if their camper's still there, they're not coming. So we want to be close to a larger population to where, they're driving, most folks that have campers are driving an hour to 2 hours max. Most people think they're traveling across country, but that's very rare.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's weekenders. They have a spot where they keep their camper, and it's like a cheap form of a lake house, right?
Yeah.
Some people have lake houses, some people have campers in a campground where they also have access to all of that.
Yeah.
Because it's right by the lake. So, and that is what draws a lot of people, is the water, getting away from, from the regular day-to-day life where they work. And they can also, a lot of times with COVID, they've been working from their RV. So some folks have moved into, about 4 to 5 million Americans live in an RV full time, believe it or not. So kind of interesting. Yeah, it's a weird little thing.
Dude, that's like more than 1%.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that, we have a park where we have 50 sites and everybody lives in their RV.
1.5%.
Everybody lives in their RV full time, and we allow it. We have internet, a little bath, laundry.
You guys provide the internet.
Correct. So sometimes we'll pay.
And you have laundry facilities and a couple other amenities.
They got to pay for that. We'll upgrade that. We actually
you guys put in pools or anything like that?
We will, but we haven't developed one. Most of the stuff comes with the pool, so we try to upgrade the pool. There'll be we try to do a lot of events with the RV parks, right? People are there, they want to have a good time. When they're done doing whatever they're doing for their daily
somebody strumming
activities.
a guitar, like live music?
Like live music. We might have a cook-off. For Halloween, we have Halloween
fire
events.
pits. Yeah.
Correct. 4th of July stuff, typically around the holidays. And most of the time we're only open, April to October, right? Because most time in the winter, people go, unless you own in Florida, people will go south to the Florida, Texas, Arizona, in the winter. The snowbirds will. So.
What about like your lake properties? Do you guys have pontoon boats or other ancillary ways of generating revenue beyond the lot rent?
So we have.
I mean, if you don't own the campers and the mobile homes and the RVs themselves, you probably don't want to own boats too, or?
Correct. We don't at this time offer any like other rental type services. We've looked at it, like adding golf carts, adding electric bikes, adding some potential kayaks or pontoons or something like that. But sometimes the risk isn't worth the reward.
Yeah.
Most of
additional
the folks,
insurance, additional maintenance, additional headaches.
Most of their people have their own boats and other things, so they don't necessarily need them. And most of our campers have been there for years, right? They leave their campers year round. We don't necessarily have the in and out of like a pull in for the weekend. What amenities do you have? But we do offer other services, like firewood. We have a camp store where we sell beer in one of them. So we do offer other revenue streams. Propane is a big one. Firewood is another one. And then laundry. Laundry, believe it or not, is a big one too.
I do.
A lot of people, they don't want to use their camper. They want to use your dryer to dry their towels and wash their clothes. So it might only cost $2, but that adds up, and it's it's a little trickle, but it does help over the course of a year.
For sure, man. It covers a lot of the operating expenses and stuff. So, have you guys ever developed any?
No. not at this time.
Is that
So.
is that like a thing? Are they even still allowing that? I heard there's like a moratorium on development of mobile home parks.
So mobile home parks, yes. It depends on the state. Each state is getting a little bit more positive because they're realizing mobile home parks are kind of the answer, right? But where can we put them so nobody sees them is kind of their dilemma a lot of times, right? And where they want to place them, it's in the middle of nowhere where no one wants to live because nobody wants to drive an hour in most cities to work.
Like my stuff up in western North Carolina, it's like up in the mountains. There's not a lot going on up there, but it's like unrestricted land. I said, hey, can I put a mobile home park in here? They said, you can do whatever the hell you want because it's unrestricted land.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, who's going to come and live here full time? You know, unless it's on the river or on the lake, and then I can turn it into something along those lines. But dude, it is so easy to do business up in the mountains because there's no building codes or restrictions. Like obviously we're going to make it nice. There's no bullshit. I don't have to deal with the zoning approvals of a short-term rental or licensing and all that other nonsense that I have to deal with here in Charleston and down in Savannah and stuff. But like up there, it's beautiful. You know, it's so easy to do business, and I want to do more business up there because of the lack of restrictions. But then at the same time, I understand you got to keep and maintain a certain aesthetics and a certain responsibility and a certain bar that you want standards kept to in some of these more developed areas. But yeah, up there they're just looking for investment, so there's some potential there.
RV park you could probably develop a lot easier than a mobile home park. An RV park, there really isn't necessarily a moratorium, it's just based on what the zoning is. So there's a lot more development of RV parks than there are mobile home parks, but the mobile home park is coming back a little bit, mainly out west and in Texas where the population is, the average home price versus here in Charleston is kind of a unique compared to the Midwest, but the prices are a lot higher out there. So the mobile home is coming a little bit more popular, tiny homes, and all kind of in that little subset of tiny living. But mobile homes are affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, dude, I love it. I think it's a super fascinating asset class. I think it's going to grow. To your point, people want that flexibility. They want they want to be able to move and migrate and see, and experience life a little bit more, especially with COVID and everything that happened. People want to work remotely. That there's more of an inclination to work remotely on both the employer and the employee side. And they're like, I don't need all the responsibility. I don't need all the liability. I don't need all the expenses of a house necessarily, and I want the mobility of being able to go and see the world. So I think I do think it's gonna grow. Even dude, it's something that I'm looking at, right? And there's multiple people in my mastermind who have RVs and or have like converted vans and school buses and stuff into like a mobile living, and it's like. We were watching something with my daughter, and she's like, "Dad, I want to go and get a car like that." It's one of these things that has the kitchen and the bathroom and bunk beds and stuff and everything in it, and its own little living room, and just travel around the country. Can we do that one summer? I was like, hell yeah, we can do that. So it's not only affordable living, but it's like there's a luxury element too, and everything in between.
Correct.
And depending on how you position your park and where it's located, and the marketing efforts and how you brand it, like I think there's some serious opportunity there. So
correct. Yeah.
It's cool to see, man.
Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. We're continuing to scale the RV park business along with the mobile home park business, but. I like the RV park business a little bit better because it's a wider variety of customers. It's a wider variety of opportunity is what we can do, and also on the back end we're getting better returns, and there's still we haven't seen any demand slowdown in the last 6 months versus everybody says we're in a recession right now, but we haven't seen a demand slowdown at all. And our ultimate kind of thesis is if we have to turn it into where somebody needs to live there, we have that capacity as well, because people do live in RVs. I have one of my managers, actually a couple of our managers, they have kids, they live in the RVs, they homeschool their kids. It's a unique life. And typically it's for 2 to 3 years they do it, or retired folk might do it for 5 to 6 years, but it's typically not, someone's not living in an RV for 10 years. So it's typically short times in people's lives, and I think it's a good asset class. We do enjoy it, and the operation is a little bit more management intensive, but we're trying to build that out as well. So
it used to be frowned upon in Saturday Night Live to live in a van down by the river, and now it's kind of the thing to do.
It is
man.
the thing, exactly.
It's kind of the thing. So awesome, bro. Well, dude, I'm excited, proud of what you've done, what you've accomplished, and just excited to continue watching the journey, man. It's really cool to see your portfolio grow and the impact that you're making. And dude, I'm pumped to see where the next couple of years lead for you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Same.
Cool, guys. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of that. Do me a favor, give me your biggest takeaway in the comment section. Give me a like, subscribe to the channel. It helps the algorithm. You know, we do this for free to try to create as much value as possible. So appreciate you guys being here. See you next time on Spill the Beans.